Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, a couple of warnings before we do get into this story, that there is trigger warnings of suicide, child neglect, and child abandonment at the same time. So if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. This is from user notthatinto and says, Dad sent me, 15 female, to boarding school at a young age. Now he's upset that I don't like to spend more time with his family during the summers, threatening not to send me back to school this fall. I want to go back. Okay, so I've been attending boarding school since I was 10. I started the 5th grade at my boarding school. The reason why I started going so early is that my dad remarried. My mother killed herself when I was a baby, to my stepmom when I was 9. When she got pregnant with my brother, she insisted that I be sent to boarding school so they could start afresh. I use quotes because I used to hear them talking about it when I still lived there. I'd actually heard the discussions they'd have at night about it when they thought I was sleeping. She said a lot of hurtful things then, about me potentially being like my mother and potentially being a bad influence on their future children. But I guess she convinced him because he gave in, and they sent me away. So I went to boarding school. I had my brother and then my sister, and I only see them in the summers and some holidays. In fact, a lot of holidays I spend with my friends' families, which my father always signed off on. This especially confuses me considering his change of heart this summer. I mean, I spent the last 4 Thanksgiving's holidays in other people's houses without comment. At first, I was extremely depressed. I was really attached to my father as a kid, and it took me a long time to deal with being sent away, especially when my siblings were born. I felt a lot of betrayal and resentment. But then, I grew to deal with it. What really helped, and still helps, is that I have a wonderful group of friends at school, and the adults there are really supportive there. My closest 2 friends have been there since I've been there. I feel like they're my family. Also, a lot of the kids I go to school with deal with what I'm dealing with in some form or the other, and this has given me a lot of perspective. Additionally, and I'm really grateful for this and understand that in a lot of ways I've been given an amazing opportunity and have nothing to complain about in this respect. I go to a really nice school. I love the grounds. I love my classes. I love the extracurriculars. I love my teachers and I love my friends. The picture people paint of boarding school isn't the one that I experience. It's pretty easy for me to say that I prefer being at school 100 times more than I prefer being at my father's and stepmom's home. When I'm in their home, I feel like an outsider. They do their thing and I do mine. It's especially awful though because I still get the sense that my stepmother doesn't want me around when I'm here. She barely acknowledges me, and I know she influences my brother and sister not to interact with me. I know because I took them to a theme park 2 weeks back, and they told me this after a full day of having fun with each other. So, and as much as I appreciate that I get to have experiences I do at school, I can't seem to distance myself from my distaste of my father and stepmom. So, in order to avoid being disrespectful or coming off as rude, I just try to minimize the time I spend with them when I'm in their home for the summer. I don't have any friends here, so this means I go on hikes, go on runs, go to the movies, whatever I can to just be active or out and about without getting into trouble. Which brings me to the problem. My father kind of blindsided me yesterday. He sat down with me while I was eating breakfast, which never happens, before going on a hike, and he told me that he's concerned that I haven't wanted to spend time with the family. I was confused because I haven't ever perceived this need from him, nor any space for it. He works all year round and all day. My stepmother is always ferrying my brother and sister to something or off with her friends. I just didn't even think that they wanted that. He said that he wants to keep me here for my final 2 years of high school and enroll me in the nearby private school so I can be with the family. And I just panicked. I get stellar grades and I'm doing well at school. Every report he's gotten has been good. I expressed this to him, but I was so distraught at the idea of not going back that they insisted my distress was an indication of how unattached from the family I was. I know I could have handled it better, but I blew up at him after he said this. I told him he was the reason I wasn't attached to the family, and that removing me from school would only remove me from the one place I had any real family. This really made him angry, and he left saying he was resolved to remove me. I don't know what to do. How can I convince him to let me go back? I feel like I'm a kid again, It's the same feeling all over again, and I'm so angry. That's just so incredibly sad and infuriating at the same time. They shipped her off to boarding school because the stepmother wanted a fresh start, which really pissed me off to begin with. They spent years emotionally distancing her and let her spend holidays with other families without caring, and now suddenly the dad is shocked that she doesn't feel deeply connected to them. Is he fucking kidding me? And despite their treatment of OP has adapted in like a really healthy way. She's found her own support system, friends, mentors, stability, does things that she loves in a place where, she feels like she has, family at school. And I sort of wonder if the only way to get through to him is be brutally honest at this point. Because let's face it, keeping OP there is only going to create a huge amount of resentment. But the commenter says, I suspect that once your stepmother learns what your father has said, that she will convince him to change his mind. The commenter says the stepmother might actually be a good last resort strategy here. If you try the letter writing or having a friend's parent or teacher talk to your father and he doesn't change his mind, then you've got nothing to lose trying to enlist your stepmother to convince him. For her own selfish reasons, it sounds like she would agree you should go back to this school, and she is probably the person most likely to influence your father. Whew. Opie says, oh god, I really hope so. Commenter says, you need to be honest with him. He'll be shocked and deny it, but if you're honest, he'll understand. You need to tell him you heard when you were 10, the reason you were shipped to boarding school is so that his family could start afresh. At the time you resented it, being displaced, but you found what you were missing at home. Acceptance. You are now thriving at school with friends who willingly and wanting to have you over for Thanksgiving. You don't feel the same at this house. You feel like an intruder, not a true member of the family. Even your brother and sister admitted that your stepmother instructed them to treat you this way. Then you drop the truth bombshell. You will always resent him for picking his new family over you, but you will resent him even more if he displaces you from the only place where you felt welcome. This conversation will not be easy, so feel free to write it as a letter instead. You are 15. You didn't get to call the shots, but you're old enough to demand your opinions be heard. Your father is an absentee parent. He needs to learn the truth. OP says, I really like the idea of writing a letter. I'm going to clear my head and get started on writing it so I can deliver it to him as soon as possible. I really appreciate this feedback. Thanks. When asked if the reason the father wants OP closer to home at a local school is for financial reasons, OP says I'm not sure. It doesn't appear as if there are money problems. I know that my tuition is very expensive, but based off the family's lifestyle, it seems like nothing. I don't know if I'm being naive with this assumption though. I don't want to be too detailed for the sake of anonymity, but I know he works in a field and for a company that makes what a lot of people consider problematic amounts of money. I don't know if anything has changed for him. It's just never a thing he's discussed with me, and I've never asked him about his money. The OP comes in with an update and says, I've been silent since the first few responses because I wanted to process all the suggestions coming my way. First, thank you so much for your concern and kindness. It really helped me sit down and think more calmly about the situation. Second, I decided to write an email to my father, in which I apologized for my outburst, expressed my understanding that we should develop a better relationship, and my want for one as well. I don't know if I really want this to be honest, but based on feedback, it seems smart to include this, and my belief that pulling me out of my school would not result in that goal. I offered alternatives like FaceTiming regularly and more consistent visits during the holidays, like Thanksgiving. I also suggested that maybe we should do something together during this holiday so we could talk and catch up. We used to hike a lot together when I was a kid, and I suggested that we go on one together, like this weekend. I also explained that I feel I've been a responsible and productive student at the boarding school, pointing out that I head the diversity club, have provided peer tutoring each year since 8th grade, and have maintained a good GPA, and that disrupting my schooling might be counterproductive. I explained that my outburst was due to these details rather than my not wanting to be closer to him. I closed out saying that I know he wants what's best for me. I hope this is true and I'll choose to believe it, and I want to work with him to make that happen. So now I'm waiting for his reply. I'm pretty anxious because I honestly don't know how he'll reply. I'm taking advice given to me here though and trying to make plans in my mind for any response. I haven't told any of my friends yet because I know they'll tell their parents, who may contact him, and I can't be sure how he'll react to that. If he refuses after my email, maybe I'll try to have an adult intervene. I'm still thinking it through. Anyway, thank you guys again. It's nice to know there are nice people all over. OP comes in with a second update. And it said, he responded, and this is the response. OP, when we spoke, I told you I'd made my decision. That stance has not changed, and I'm disappointed that you have chosen to ignore my words. Do not forget that you are still a child under my care, despite what you may feel. One day you will see the wisdom in this and be thankful. I'm currently out on business, and will be back on Saturday. Until I return and able to speak in person, I do not want to hear or read another word about this issue. OP then says, I want to contact my headmaster and dorm parent, have good relationships with them, and now I feel if they contact him, that will be the end of it. I think I fucked this up. I shouldn't have sent that email. I should have waited. I didn't know. My friend's parents are all pretty influential and well known in my dad and my stepmom's social circle, and I'm worried it will humiliate my dad/stepmom if they find out about this issue or try to intervene. I feel so paralyzed. OP then comes in with update 3 and says, I'm going back to school. A lot has happened in a short period of time. I don't think I dealt with my father's email in the smartest way, but it worked. Advice telling me to speak to my stepmom really stuck with me. I felt so desperate that I spoke to my stepmom about the situation. It became very obvious very quickly that she had no clue that my father had wanted this. She immediately left the room after I explained the situation. I could hear her arguing with him, saying it was a deal breaker and that she wouldn't have it. He called me soon after she hung up and sounded so very angry. He said it was clear I had made up my mind and didn't want to be a part of the family. He said that he had wanted time to let my stepmother know and wishes I had trusted him. I didn't even know how to start explaining why I feel his view of my feelings are so wrong before he told me that since I didn't even want to try working with him, he's sending me back. He ended the call saying, I hope you can deal with the consequences of your choices. I'm angry at him because I feel like so much of this is miscommunication on his part, but I'm happy more than anything because I get to go back. Thank God. I'm going to lay low, be as nice to everyone as possible, and try to ride this out until school starts, which is soon. I'm so relieved. Someone says to OP, update 3 is fucking glorious. He throws you away like garbage, tries to tear you away from your friends you made as a coping mechanism after his abandonment. Then, when you suggested a reasonable compromise to meet his need for affection without hurting you, he tells you that your feelings don't matter, and he has a goal to act like you should have kept this secret from his wife. Out of what? Loyalty? Why would he think you'd have any reason to help him destroy everything happy in your life? What a self-absorbed fucking moron. I hope you email him this comment of mine and some choice others from this thread. Don't actually. That arsehole needs a slap in the face with some perspective. I'm a grown-ass adult and I don't see how on earth you'd thank him later for what he tried to do. And one more commenter says, just saw update 3, congrats, and I'm glad this worked out. The things you know need to be shared someday though. The arsehole needs to know that you know he's full of shit. Maybe wait until he doesn't have any control over your life though. Not gonna lie, the plot twist of the wicked stepmother being the one who actually shut this whole thing down. You know, you don't see that every day, right? And what was that line from the father? I hope you can deal with the consequences of your choices after he created this entire situation. Honestly, just says everything about him. He could have stepped back, realized the damage that he had done, but he made himself the victim because his daughter didn't instantly fall back into the role that he wanted. What a cheeky, horrible bastard. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Exile, who says, my girlfriend 33 of 7 months wants to quit her job because I, male 31, won a significant amount of money in the lottery. My girlfriend and I have had a pretty tumultuous relationship, which has seen us broken up twice already. I've been the initiator of the split both times, always because of her extreme, unrelenting clinginess and lack of trust. We don't live with each other, obviously. Why we're still together is a bit of a mystery to me. I love her, for sure, and we can get along well together. But we also have very different tastes in what constitutes an acceptable amount of personal space and privacy. When I try to tell her that she is smothering me, she basically shrugs and says she isn't changing. The past 2 months we've had a slight shelter from our usual storms, and it hasn't been as bad. She's still very clingy and constantly accuses me of chatting and meeting other girls. I haven't. Keeps close tabs on what I'm doing or who I'm hanging out with, etc, etc. But I keep at it because I believe I'd be alone for a long time without her, and I'm frankly afraid of that. It doesn't help that she's also told me as much the same, that I'd be alone without her. Cut to a few weeks ago. I won a lot of money in the lottery, paid in lump sum. It's all very new to me and very, very surreal, and I haven't really done much with it all yet, but talked to some financial advisors to figure it all out. But it's readily acknowledged I'm in a position to retire. The only two things I have done so far is take a month off from work to sort through things and get very drunk on expensive scotch with my sister. I have a lot of friends right now. I know who my friends are and plan on doing nice things for them all. However, my girlfriend is now asking me if she can quit her job. When I asked her why she would, she said because I have money, but if she had won that much money, she had given me X amount of money without a thought because that's what people do for those they love. Anyways, it didn't take long for her to start accusing me of wanting to ditch her now that I'm rich, and how she was so stupid not to have seen it before. All because I don't want to give her a shitload of money. I'm in an awkward position now. What am I to do? I'm not a stingy or shallow person, but this relationship was rocky before all of this. I'm afraid of looking shallow, I guess, even though I believe I'm being practical. And while I'm not necessarily clamoring for us to split right now, I feel this will be an issue as long as we're together. Sorry for the rambling. Hope that makes sense. I think the lottery winnings in this story are like almost irrelevant here because the relationship already sounded like absolute shite. It sounded exhausting before the money even entered the picture. And now we're like, what is it, just 7 months? You've already broken up twice. You're getting constant accusations. You told us about the clinginess, telling Opie he'd be alone without her. Come on now. And the second the money does appear, she's talking about quitting her job. And, because he's hesitant about this, now it's proof that he wants to leave her now that he's rich. Yeah, there's red flags all over this. And let's face it, 7 months is nothing. You barely know each other at that stage, let alone to the point where one person should financially retire the other for life. Be alone, find yourself, enjoy your money, buy yourself, go on a holiday, live the life a bit, why not, right? Commenter says, it's been 7 months and you've broken up twice already, dump and run. Opie says the argument is, I think she's overly smothering, she thinks I'm afraid of intimacy, so sometimes I second guess my rationale. But she is certainly very keen on knowing everything I do. Like if she sees I'm online and it's not writing a lovely email to her, it's an argument all night. Oof. I realize it sounds cut and dry, but she does have her good qualities. Ah dear. Commenter says, you've yet to mention any. Reread what you've wrote and ask yourself based on only what was written, what your advice to a different person who wrote that would be. Commenter says, nope. You have this windfall and suddenly she thinks she's on easy street and never has to work again. Fuck that. You have much bigger fish to fry than your dating life. You need to talk to a financial consultant and find a way to make this money last so that you don't end up yet another cautionary tale. You need to learn to be appropriately selfish in a big way, and most likely you're going to have to end your relationships with a lot of people. Otherwise, you're going to be expected to pay for pretty much everything and shamed when you don't. Don't fuck around with this. It could be the greatest or worst thing that has ever happened to you. Opie says you hit the nail on the head. I do feel ashamed of thinking selfishly, and I think I worry about being perceived as such. It's amazing how much some people have opened up to me the past few weeks. A commenter says she's your girlfriend, not your fiancé or your wife. She has no right to quit her job and rely on you to support her. She has fully taken advantage of the situation and is probably attempting to make you feel guilty by pulling the if you break up with me, it's because you're rich now. Who cares if you look shallow? She shouldn't assume that just because you happen to win a large amount of money that she is entitled to any life-altering benefits from it. I would sit her down and explain why exactly you're breaking up with her, and explain why it has nothing to do with the newfound fortune. If she still accuses you of it being because of the money, you'll know she's just trying to emotionally manipulate you. OP quotes the first part of that and then says extremely well said, then quotes saying, who cares if you look shallow, and then says, this seems to be my problem. She just texted me a while ago saying she accepted my quirks before I won the money, and few ever did so before. I've only had 2 relationships, so to ditch her now proves money will change me. I feel guilty. Commenter quotes that and says, this so reminds me of when I finally told my abusive ex-wife I was leaving and she said, I'm the only person who would put up with your bullshit. Quotes OP saying I feel guilty and says, which I'm sure is her intention. This is manipulative as hell. If you didn't think you had a reason to leave before, you do now. Yeah, this behavior all showing up 7 months in, the constant monitoring, she's getting angry if he's online and not messaging her, accusing him of cheating, making him feel like no one else would ever accept him. All super emotionally manipulative behavior. But after the comments, Opie did edit the post and says, "Thank you all for taking the time to respond. I think I'm taking my anxiety with the whole situation in general and applying it to a relationship that was on wobbly legs already. I'm already afraid of having to make tough, selfish decisions with a lot of out-of-the-woodwork people. But this is clearly a no-brainer. The decision was essentially made before my win even. Thanks again for your input and advice." So it was 18 days later that Opie came back in and said, "A few people have messaged me asking for an update on this situation. In a word, nightmare. Suffice to say, she was not happy when I told her she needs to forget about the money for now, and that we had serious problems in our relationship from before the win that we kept sweeping aside, and all this has done is force us to have a conversation we needed to have anyways. It got heated pretty quickly, and I felt like we kept digressing into petty arguments about old stuff instead of sticking to the main issue. She suddenly took to calling me manipulative and emotionally abusive, which took me completely off guard and had me scrambling to defend myself before it occurred to me that she was just trying to make me feel guilty again. After probably 4 or 5 hours of getting nowhere, I finally said that we were breaking up and there's nothing more to it. She got up from the couch, got her stuff and told me to go to fucking hell and slam the door. Next day, the texts and emails started coming in saying that no one will love me like she did. How it's sad to see how money has changed me so quickly. Hoping I have fun banging superficial escorts on and on and on. I ignored the messages. The next day she calls and I ignore the call in and she goes to voicemail and says she is crying and says she needs my help and has no one else to turn to and to please call her. I don't call her back. Thursday night around 11:30 p.m, the police are knocking at my door. Apparently a neighbor called in a loud domestic dispute from my apartment. I tell him I've been alone all night. He asks to take a look around and I say sure. He says the neighbor who called is not answering their door nor their phone and asks if I recognize the last 4 digits of a number, which I don't. So he asks if I know any reason why someone might call the police making such a claim. I tell him I did recently break up with a girlfriend on the weekend, and we did yell, so either someone took their time to call or my ex is not taking things well. We both agree it is strange. I decide not to ask her about it. Over the weekend I get a few emails and texts and calls from her that start off sweet and nostalgic and end up angry and accusing me of throwing her to the side and being heartless, among other things. From the voicemails I can tell she is drunk. I can't resist, so I ask her by email if she knew anything about the prank call to the police, which of course she denies and then spins it back on me. Do I really think her so petty? Why would I ever think that? It just proves I never trusted her. Back to arguing, so I don't reply. So yesterday I log onto Facebook for the first time in a while and I notice over the past few days she's been adding my friends as friends. Nothing else, but it freaks me out. I send her a message asking why she's added my friends and she essentially says it's a free country and that she couldn't have been so bad if my friends like her too. All to say I am wary and I am depressed and lonely and I have a feeling this is going to be a pain in the ass. Objectively, I know this was a good move, but subjectively, it's a whole other matter. Look forward to normal times. Sorry again for the rant. Commenter says, quoting, "No one will love me like she did." Commenter says, "Here's hoping, right? You should message your friends though, and say that your ex is sending the cops to your house and such, so they should watch out if she friends them out of nowhere." Opie says I've locked my Facebook privacy settings down and emailed some friends. My closest friends and family are well in the know already, of course. Commenter says cut all ties, burn the bridges, block numbers, block on Facebook, document harassment. Opie says didn't think I need to block her number, but you are likely right. Commenter replies saying nah, you need to. Every single option for communication with you is an open door to her. She's going to try them all one by one until she finds an open one. She's like a raptor, systematically checking the electric fence for weaknesses so she knows where to attack, is what I'm saying. So do the right thing and turn the entire fence on so she can't get in no matter what. Opie edits one more time saying, I thank you all for the time, reply, support, and even a few laughs. I feel much better going forward. Some of the language that was being used by her in this post is definitely, similar to other stories we've read about abusive relationships. The no one will love you like I did and all that kind of stuff. And like one of the commenters says, yeah, let's hope not, because if that's love, bloody hell, the bar is in hell, right? And I really do hope that OP did block and just stayed no contact with this person, because let's face it, she was after that money. She was keen on it, and I think she would have carried on trying to do it. So that, you know, the raptor electric fence someone was talking about was spot on at the same time. And the rule about winning the lottery, if you ever win big, never tell a soul. That's always the #1 rule. Holy moly, what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And don't forget, at the very end of the video, if you want to listen to more Reddit stories, there'll be a couple of playlists there you can click on, and it will automatically scroll through all those videos for you. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. You just don't. Still selling false hope cause you just don't care. House, feel if we talking to a uniform, who the real, you know